A couple of Steelers offensive linemen have the perfect solution for ending all of the sniping by former members of the team directed to current members of the team. They've decided to go to social media and ask nicely that you please stop, as if that ever works. Essentially, what Ramon Foster and Marquise Pouncey want former members of the team to do is to get in touch with them, Foster and or Pouncey, if there's anyone currently in the building they have a problem with that they would like to speak with. Instead of speaking out publicly against these people, let us know and we will connect you with them so you can hash it out man to man, face to face, voice to voice, and not create more drama by taking shots on social media. Now, this overlooks the fact that guys like Antonio Brown probably like taking the shots publicly and prefer not to do it privately. But, you know, I guess it's a message that at this point they're desperate to send because they're doing everything they can to stop this never-ending bleeding that makes the Steelers organization look worse and worse and worse.
Well, I want to actually ask you that question, Mike, because at what point, you obviously know the Steelers inside and out. What point are the Rooneys like, this is actually embarrassing because this is the culture of the Pittsburgh Steelers, calling other players out, calling other teammates out. The guys who are going right now and saying, hey, everyone come talk to us man to man, don't take it to social media, they're the guys who also said stuff about Le'Veon Bell before the season. So everyone is to blame here, and at some point, are the Rooneys going to just stand up and be like, hey, we're very embarrassed by how this has all gone, like we have to change?
Well, I think first you have to acknowledge that it's a problem. And what's the gif with the guys, the cartoon characters sitting in the burning room saying this is fine? I mean, I feel like Art Rooney, the owner of the team, is still in denial that there's even an issue. And I think this all flows back to Mike Tomlin. If Chris Sims were here, he would be defending Mike Tomlin. But I think the culture of that organization, the culture in that locker room is set by the degree of accountability that is generated by the head coach. And I always compare, and look, the Steelers have 6 Super Bowl championships, the Patriots have 6. And when things aren't going wrong in Pittsburgh, I look at the Patriots and say, what would Bill Belichick do about this situation? Bill Belichick would never let it get to a point where anyone is saying anything publicly, where any of this stuff is playing out publicly. He would never allow anyone to think that there's a different set of rules that apply to them. If Antonio Brown's showing up late, that's going to be dealt with before he becomes a diva. These things are all going to be nipped in the bud long before they become problems. And I think what we're seeing here is the end result of years of the Steelers not having the kind of culture internally where there is accountability, where there is one set of rules, where there isn't the opportunity for guys like Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger to do whatever they want. Roethlisberger call guys out publicly if he wants to. I mean, think of the irony here. You've got current members of the team saying, hey, former members of the team, if you're going to call out any of our guys, please let us know and we can handle it privately. You got a quarterback who's currently on the team who thinks he has license to call out anybody anytime he wants. And does this apply to him too? No, it only applies to former players. That's their loophole to avoid them getting in trouble with Ben Roethlisberger.
No, you're absolutely right. It's a Mike Tomlin issue. It's a Ben Roethlisberger issue. I just don't. The whole thing has been just comical, and it's got this carnival-esque feel to it, and it's never going to stop because Antonio Brown's not going to stop talking. And if Big Ben calls out, you nailed it. Big Ben. I go back to this last offseason when they draft Mason Rudolph, and you have the whole comments where Ben says, you know what, it's not my job to teach him. I'm not going to be his mentor. That's leadership from within that's just not there. And Ben is a Hall of Fame quarterback, 2-time Super Bowl champion. But sometimes your best leader is not your quarterback. But, you know, they get thrust into that situation and everyone looks to them. And I think that's where the problem comes from, is that your coach and your quarterback are not strong leaders in the fact that they can tell everyone, hey, look, we got to button it up. We have to keep everything in the locker room here. We can't be going to the media. We can't be going to social media. You need to have one of the two. And when the quarterback and the coach kind of put a blind eye to it, this is how everyone starts talking. This is how you have this carnival go on for what feels like a couple of years now.
And I feel like the standard that applies to Ben Roethlisberger is the simple result of the fact that the Steelers went 20 years between Terry Bradshaw and Ben Roethlisberger without a franchise quarterback. They didn't win a Super Bowl during that stretch, and they realized we've got a guy who's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Maybe he doesn't get the credit for being a great quarterback that he should, but he is a great quarterback. They put up with all the other stuff because who's going to be the quarterback? And you see they've been kind of clumsily flailing at trying to find someone they can groom. Josh Dobbs 1 year, Mason Rudolph the next year. Who knows what they'll do in the draft this year? They have to be thinking about life without Ben Roethlisberger, but until they get to the point where he is done, they got to find a way to make it work. And I feel like they're just trying to hold it all together as best they can while they limp to the finish line of Roethlisberger's career and try to win one more Super Bowl, and that's just not the way to do it. And also, one of the other issues with the Steelers, and I've mentioned this from time to time, I feel like that they've allowed this, hey, we've only had 3 coaches in 50 years, to become such a part of their identity that they don't hold their current coach accountable the way they should, because they still want to be able to say, we've only had 3 coaches in 51 years. Now it's 52. Now it's 53. Look at us. We're going for 3 coaches in 60 years. And the coach feels like he's never going to be run out the door because the organization takes so much pride in never firing a coach that the coach can say, hey, I don't have to worry about getting fired.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I always criticize teams that fire coaches too quickly. So I'm not going to sit here and say that, the Steelers going the opposite direction is a bad thing. I think there's a fine balance where a coach can't feel like they're always coaching for their job and saying, hey, this next decision might be the end of me. They have to have the freedom to take risks and take the correct risks. But at some point, you're right. It gets to a point where it's like Mike Tomlin can do anything. Mike Tomlin can have year after year after year where they don't meet the expectations and fall short and still have a job. So, teams do sometimes have coaches too long. I think about even Lovie Smith with the Bears. Lovie Smith was a good coach. Lovie Smith was consistent, and the Bears were good year after year, and at least, not great, but they were in the hunt. And eventually got to a point where it's like, look, it's just the same thing year after year. They haven't gotten to that next level. Maybe we got to move on. And Mike Tomlin feels like they have not gotten to that next level. And they missed the playoffs last year, and they lose and get absolutely embarrassed to the Jaguars the year before. What's going to happen this year? If they don't get to the playoffs this year and Mike Tomlin keeps his job, then he does really feel like he has a job for life, and he does really feel like there are no repercussions to a locker room that's kind of falling apart at the seams.
And Big Head, I agree with you. I don't like it when teams fire coaches too quickly, but there needs to be a baseline level of expectation that if you go below that, just like a player, we're going to do what's in the best interest of the team. And we're going to give you time on the front end. We're going to give you a couple of years, 3 years maybe, 4 years at the most, to try to get your footing. But once you are the year-to-year head coach, we don't just say, okay, you've got a job for life, you've got tenure now. There still is a minimum level that you've got to maintain. And if you don't, for more than a couple of years, that's when we're going to make a change. Now, with all that said, one thing I know about the Steelers, when the bar is high, they don't make it. When the bar is low, they soar over it. And with all this stuff, there's a way this year that Tomlin can pull all of it together. The acrimony, everybody is on the Browns and how great they are. There's so many different motivating points out there that if Tomlin does it right, he can put together a very special team. There's still a lot of talent, and this is a team that could overachieve, could get to the playoffs, could win some games when they get there because of the veteran leadership they have with Roethlisberger, and Tomlin's been there and done that as well. As long as they don't face the Patriots along the way, they could end up maybe making it to the Super Bowl this year, and it all flows from taking all of this negativity and harnessing it the right way, and that's on Tomlin. And if Tomlin pulls that off, then maybe he should have a job for life. But if he fails this year, this may be the time to start thinking about the 4th coach in 51 years.
Listen, I think that we are in that spot for the Steelers where it's addition by subtraction with Antonio Brown and how it all went down and all the reports. And I am not sympathetic towards Ben. We've talked about him at the beginning of this segment where, Roethlisberger deserves a lot of the criticism. But in terms of a day-to-day stress, Antonio Brown going to the Raiders will probably help the Steelers in 2019. Phenomenal wide receiver, top wide receiver in the game. You can make the argument, top 3 at least. But at some point, the distractions get too much. And I do think they'll have a little bit of addition by subtraction because there's still a ton of talent on the roster. And now you don't have the headache of Antonio Brown week to week. What type of mood is he going to be in on Tuesday practice? What type of mood is he going to be in on the walkthrough on Saturday? Will he show up on Sunday? Is he going to play? There's all these questions, and now they're going to have that eliminated and get back to football.
And also they're going to be paying attention to everything Antonio Brown does with the Raiders and enjoying from afar if that ends up being the kind of mess that it could be. All right, we got to take a break. When we return, Nick Bosa deleted some tweets that were political in nature. Should he or any other athlete be expected to go back and delete tweets and keep their political views to themselves as they approach the draft? We'll discuss that when PFT Live continues right after this.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.